Hello yet again, and in this episode we're going to look at using your ailerons as flaps. How do you program that? There are many models with, obviously you need two aileron servos in them to do this, and you would like to use them as flaps because you don't have flaps. Or maybe you want to turn them up a little bit for landing because you want a little bit of reflex. Doesn't matter which way you want them to move. The programming is exactly the same. All that happens is one way you turn the dial to positive percentages, one way you turn the dial to negative percentages. Nice and easy. So there's a couple of ways, at least, to program the radio to get your ailerons to behave as flaps. The first one that might come to mind for you is that you have to create a function called flaps and then mix flaps to ailerons, and if you want elevator trim to go with it, you'd have to mix flap to elevator. And you can do all that, and we'll look at that as the second method in this video. The only reason I wouldn't choose that as the first method is that it involves a lot more programming steps. It's just as valid as the first method I'm going to show you, but the first method, to me, is much quicker, simpler, and easier to use. And it uses my most favourite menu in Jeti, the butterfly oblique flaps menu. So let's take a look. I've set up my Kurari here. Although it does have flaps, we're going to ignore those. It's got the two ailerons and an elevator, and we'll use those as examples. And I have set it up as a very simple model. Oh, well, there, doesn't matter, that one. Functions assignment. I've only got ailerons, elevator, rudder. I'm going to use P4 stick, which often you would use as a throttle stick, as my flap controller. But if you've got a power model, then exactly the same programming principle applies. It's just, of course, that you'd use, say, a side slider, a rotary control, or even a switch. Doesn't matter. So I've got my ailerons, elevator, rudder. That's all there is. I'm not going to create a flap function. Crikey, Harry, how are you going to have flaps without a flap function? Well, I mentioned it's my most favourite menu because it is so powerful. Butterfly flaps. And here we'll choose a control stick knob switch that we're going to use, and I'm going to use in this instance P4, what many of you might call the throttle stick. Notice though, it's telling us a bit of information here. I've got the stick fully forward, it's at 100%, stick fully back, it's at 0%. And I want to program this so that with the stick fully forward, there is no effect of flap, and with the stick fully back, it pulls the flaps down. So obviously I want 0% at stick forward, so I just press rev, and now I've got 0% at stick forward, and full stick back gives me 100%. If I left it the way it was initially, what would happen was that I'd get no flap with the stick fully back, and the flap would come on with the stick forward. So if you find your control working the opposite way, just come back here, press rev, and you're done. Okay, that's it. That's my control assigned to the butterfly flaps. I don't actually have to create a function. Now we just go into the aileron flaps adjustment. Servo 1, servo 2, that's on the left, that's on the right. And I just go in and give them a value. Symmetry is switched on, so they'll both move together, but if you need to tweak them to get exact travels, just switch symmetry off, and you can adjust each one independently. How much travel will I need? Don't know. Which direction will I need? I don't know. First thing I'm going to do is prove that I've got the stick set the correct way round. I've got the stick fully forward. That's where I want nothing to happen. So I will have a look at the ailerons, and whilst I'm watching them, I'm going to spin the dial round. Doesn't matter which way, I can see nothing's happening. Lovely. Now if I pull the stick back towards me, I'm wanting the aileron to go down as a flap. Oh, and it is. And look at that, that one's going down as well. I just expressed surprise there because I thought Sod's Law means they'll go upwards. But it doesn't matter. I was kind of hoping they'd go upwards. I'd show you the difference. But if they go the wrong way, you would just turn the opposite sign. It happens to be plus 68 has worked. If I went to minus whatever, then pulling the stick back, they'll go upwards. Yeah? But we want a positive sign. So, whoops. Come back to something a bit more sensible. Let's say we want 50% travel. So there we go. That's it. Dead easy. However, there's lots of tweaking you can do to this. Let's take a look at it. Say OK to that. And you might think, well, it's very sensitive. If I've moved the stick back just a little bit, I'm going to start getting flap coming in. I'd like there to be a little sort of dead zone at the top. Not a problem. That's what the offset is for. So come up here, come along to offset, and you can't go a negative percentage. You can only go a positive percentage, because of course there's only one way the offset's working. And let's say I want... Take a look at that dial there. Can we see that? I'm not sure if the light's allowing... No, I'm afraid I'm shooting against the light here. Okay, I'm going to pull the flap stick back a bit, and the flaps come down. Okay, now, there's the full range of travel. With the stick back a little bit, that I would like to be the start where it comes in. So that's the amount of stick I want to be as dead zone. So all I'll do now is I will start turning up that percentage dead zone. Can you see the coming back up? There, it stopped there. Turn the dead zone. There. So that amount of dead zone has got the flap, or aileron as flap, back to neutral. There's the offset. So now I can pull the stick back, and that offset will apply. I don't know if you can just hear the flap aileron coming in at that point. So now I've set my dead zone. Lovely. And then you think, but if I do this, the elevator might need a little bit of retrimming. Do I have to set up separate flight modes with elevator trim? Or do I have to somehow mix? Well, I can't. There is no function to mix to elevator. Doesn't matter. Jeti's built it all in for you. Let's have a look at the wonderful things you can do in there. Let's move down. Elevator adjustment. Here we go. And in this, you can dial in the amount of adjustment of elevator you want. Negative values or positive values, so that you can make the elevator go up or down. For the sake of the example, I'll dial in a huge amount of elevator compensation. And the offset that we applied to this stick for the flaps will apply to the elevator adjustment as well. So there's the elevator. I'll pull the stick all the way back. See, I've set up a massive travel, so it goes all the way down. But I'm pulling the stick back. I'm wiggling the stick around the top of its travel there. It's in the offset band. The elevator isn't moving, as is the flap not moving. So the offset applies. And you think, well, that's all very well, Harry, but I don't know how much offset to set. Not a problem. Clear that out. Say OK. Come down to tuning. And what control shall we use? Let's use P8 as the tuning control for the elevator offset. Not the offset, the elevator trimming on it. Say OK. Come down here. And we'll give it... How much power do we want it to have? Well, we've got a rotary knob, so we might as well give it total power. And then we can trim as much as is needed. Again, if I was doing this, I would probably set it to something like 20 or 30, and then you get very fine control of the tuning. But we'll do it this way to show the effect. Okay, I'm going to turn P8 up to the maximum. We've got 100% trim, but the flap hasn't been moved yet. So if I now move the flap down, See, the elevator trim goes with it. I'm going to turn the P8 knob back to the off position and pull the flap down, and you see nothing happens. Great. So now I can fly along, pull my flap to the maximum, and think, oh, I need some trimming. I shall trim it down a bit. There we go, and that's the amount I need. Right. You think, trouble is, what if I knock that P8 knob? How do I lock this value in? Well, you can do that. If we say OK to the moment, and we come back up to the elevator adjustment, you can see here, we left the global value of 0, but 24 is the value that it has now been turned to by the P8 knob. If I turn P8, you'll see turning. So we set it in flight to get the trim value we wanted. We can see it's there. How do we lock it in? Press the apply button. It will then transfer the variable into the fixed in value. It'll zero out the variable and it'll remove the control for you. So it's locked in. So I say apply. So the 27 now moves to there. It's locked in. It's zeroed out the tuning knob. Say OK to that. Let's have a look back at tuning. See, it's zeroed that out for you now. And you can swing P8 now, but because it now has no influence over elevator, it makes no difference. Look back here. See, 27's locked in. I'm rotating the P8 knob. No problem. Say OK. So now, we've got a flap there. We've got an offset. I'm wiggling the top of the stick. It's in the offset band, no problem. The elevator trim doesn't move in the offset either. And now the total elevator trim, which is proportional, goes with it. Okie doke. Lovely and easy. And what else can we do? If we zero this out, in fact, I think what I'm going to do is just stop the video there, because we've reached 12 minutes. You're probably beginning to flag in concentration. Might want to look over it again. The other method that I mentioned is, it's covered in things like the videos I've done on mixing, where you would go into Model, Function Assignment, you'd create a function called Flap, or you could have done this in the wizard in the very first place, you know, where it asks you how many aileron and flap servos you've got, and let it do all that. Say OK. I'd assign the stick to it. Say OK to that. There'd be no servo assigned to it because there isn't a servo, and then you would come to fine tuning, free mixes, add from your new flap function to ailerons, and then you'd assign a value and get your everything working from there. You probably have to go for offset curves, and then you'd have to come back into free mixers and do a flap to elevator mix as well if you want to get your elevator tuning with it. Okie doke, but as you can see, doing it in the butterfly flaps menu is very powerful, very fast. It's all contained within one menu.